Welcome to day 2 of chapter 4, where we will be talking about posting from separate amounts from our journal to our general ledger. So that is what we're going to do, posting amounts either from our general debit or our general credit columns of our journal. So here we go. To define first what posting is, posting at the end of the day just means that we transfer our information from a journal entry to a ledger account. Now, as I talked about in section 1, I said if we didn't use a ledger and all we had is our journal, there would be no place for us to keep a record of what is happening for each individual account. That is what the general ledger does. Okay? But in order to get our information from our journal to our ledger, we have to post. Now, there are 2 rules for posting amounts. You can either post individually, and that comes from either your general debit or your general credit columns, or you can post amounts as part of the total when you have a special amount column. Now, pop quiz, can anybody name our 3 special amount columns? I know I can't hear you, but I hope you said sales credit, cash debit, cash credit. Those are our 3 special amount columns, okay? And they're different. We're going to look at those in our next section tomorrow. Today, we're only worried about this one, posting individually, okay? So here we have our journal, which has a transaction where it looks like we paid cash for supplies. Then, down below, we have our account in our general ledger. So like we talked about yesterday, we have supplies, and then we have our account number, which is number 150. So in order for us to get our information from our journal into our general ledger, we have to post. So the first things we do are we write the date. So just like we did for our journal, we would write January. We'd put the year, 20 January, and then the day. And that just transfers right down there. The second thing we do is we write the journal page number in our post reference column. Now, this is the post reference column of our general ledger. So see, because we are on journal page 1, we come down here and we write page 1. Now, all that tells us is that if we need to go back and find where this transaction happened, we could go back and look at journal page 1 and we could find our date and we would find that transaction. The third thing we do is we write our debit amount. Now remember, we are only looking at the general debit, general credit columns. We are not looking at our special amount columns over here, so disregard these. We are only looking at our general debit. So since the supplies was our account title for our general debit, we're debiting 165 here. Then we write the new account balance. Now, because this is our first transaction that we are posting, it just says that our supplies balance is 165 because we didn't have anything before that. If we had a previous balance, I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then the fifth and final thing, which so many people forget to do because you do all of these steps and you look like you're complete. You are not. The fifth and final step of posting is that we go back to our journal, back to the journal, and we write our account number for supplies in our post reference column of the journal. So what that says to us is that we have indeed posted that account. If not, it gets very difficult to remember what transaction are you on. So you can see we put our account number 150 up into the post reference column. And that's posting. Now, if we needed to post a second amount to an account, so notice that here we're on the 5th, and we have another transaction for supplies. We bought supplies on account from Canyon Office Supplies. And so what we're doing here is, once again, start out, we put our date, which is the 5th. We go ahead and put our journal page number in our post reference column again. Journal page number was number 1. Comes down here into our post reference. We take our debit amount, could be a credit amount too. It happens to be a debit amount this time. Our debit amount for that supplies was $220, so we put that into our debit column. And now this is where it's a little bit different, and you still need to remember what exactly is each account's normal balance. So we know that supplies has a normal debit balance. So since we already had 165 and we had a debit of 220, that means we add these two together and our up-to-date balance in supplies is 385. Does that make sense? If it was a credit, now I don't know why you'd be crediting supplies, but bear with me here. If it was a credit, you would need to subtract and your balance would hopefully still be a debit. Okay, if it went past 0, then you would have a negative balance, and that would really never happen with supplies, so we don't have to worry about that. But you do have to remember what your normal balance is, because that will determine whether you're going to have to add or subtract to get your new account balance. And then last but not least, we go back and we put our account number, which is 150, up into the post reference column of the journal. Again, remember I said so many people forget to do step 5. Don't forget to do step 5. So here's just another example of posting from a general credit column. The only difference is that you can see that Michael Delgado has a credit balance instead of a debit balance, because a capital account is owner's equity. It means it has a normal balance of a credit and increases on the right side of the account. So then it's just the same. You do your date. You put your journal page number, which is still 1. You put your credit amount into your credit column for Michael Delgado Capital, and you write your new account balance, which is $2,000, and then you go back, returning to your journal, and put your account number in the post reference column there. All things considered, it's the exact same. Please notice that we are not dealing with anything in our special amount columns. Do not do that. You do not need to post that $2,000 to cash. Why? I'll tell you about it tomorrow, but don't do it today. You're going to spend so much time and you're going to get a whole bunch of things wrong, so don't do it. We are only concerned with what is individually being posted: general debit, general credit. Now, our post reference number. I said I was going to come back to this several times in chapters 1, 2, and 3. Here we are. The numbers in our post reference column serve 3 purposes. The first one is so that an entry in an account can get traced back to its source in the journal. That's why we put the journal page number in our ledger account. An entry in the journal can also be traced back to where it was posted in an account. That's why we put our account number up in our journal. And if for some reason you get interrupted while you were doing this, the person can easily look and see which entries have been posted if you don't forget to do that step 5. Because if you have a blank post reference column, that means that you haven't finished that and that it still needs to be completed. And that's why it's the last step in the posting procedure. So don't forget to do it, is what I'm getting at. So that's it. We're going to head over to MindTap. We're going to do our 4-2 work together, where we will complete posting for our general debit and general credit column.